Professor Hanson, we would first encourage our listeners to visit your website, victorhanson.com, to read excellent pieces on history and current events. Professor Hanson, in your excellent piece titled, "Can we let the voters decide, not the FBI, CIA, DOJ, lawyers, prosecutors, and judges?" you provide an insight into a command and control Democratic Party which has been weaponizing government institutions against President Trump and American voters since 2015 in order to remain in power. Professor Hanson, could you kindly share with us your analysis of this, what it appears to be a blatant election interference by the Democratic Party?
Well, it reveals two things about the left as it's represented by the Democratic Party. One, they feel that they're morally superior because of their agenda of mandated equality of result. And therefore, any means necessary they justify to obtain the supposedly superior moral result or end. And second, they do not have a lot of confidence in their agenda appealing to 51% of the American people. So on the border, crime, the economy, debt, inflation, energy, deterrence abroad, foreign policy. If you look at all of those policies, they poll below 51%. And so in lieu of that, they have to wage lawfare. So we've had now nearly a decade, going back to 2015, a succession of extra legal attempts to use the administrative state and the judiciary to destroy their opposition, mostly in this decade of Donald Trump. So we started out with a Russian collusion farce, and that was from 2015 to 2016. That transmogrified into the Robert Mueller investigation that wasted 20 months and really ate up the first 2 years of the Trump administration. And then no sooner did that fail, they impeached Donald Trump the moment he lost the majority in the House on the grounds that he had made a phone call, not to suspend, but just to delay a congressionally approved aid to Ukraine, which, by the way, was much more generous and included offensive weapons that Barack Obama had not. And he was worried about Victor Slocum being fired and the Biden's undue influence. So they impeached him over that. And I would add, just as an editorial note, Joe Biden has suspended 3,500 bombs, smart bombs, to Israel. It's pretty transparent. He did so after they were congressionally approved because of worries over the Muslim population voting against him in Michigan. And yet no one would think of impeaching him for that. And then we went under Russian laptop disinformation in the 2020 election when 51 supposed intelligence authorities, they said they were former, but many of them were still contracted and working for the CIA. And they swore, basically, they said it had all the likelihood of Russian disinformation. That had probably affected, according to one poll, the popular vote. Not satisfied with that, we went right in then in the interim with the use of the FBI to do an unprecedented raid of Mar-a-Lago. Never seen that in a SWAT top. And they did that in a number of other cases to some people who were, Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon. Others were treated extra legally in the sense that they'd never have done that to people on the other side. And then we went in, as you know, to the effort to use 4 criminal indictments and 1 civil suit, the Fannie Willis, Alvin Bragg, Letitia James, Jack Smith, and then in addition to that, E. Jean Carroll, which was funded by Reid Hoffman, the Lincoln billionaire, to try to do what they felt they were not able to do at the polls, and that is to either destroy Donald Trump or to keep him off the campaign trail or to bankrupt him or to tie him up in such a legal morass he wouldn't have a lot of options. That has largely failed. But then at the same time, 16 states filed at one time to remove him from the ballot on the charges. He was an insurrectionist. That failed. The Hitlerian rhetoric, I think this is fair to say that the last 10 years, and when celebrities and others have tried to compete in their imagination to poison Donald Trump, to shoot him, to behead him, to incinerate him, to blow him up, whether it's Madonna, Kathy Griffin, or beat him up, as Joe Biden said, behind the gym, or punch him in the face as well. That lowered the bar of what was acceptable behavior, and it appealed or it resonated with unhinged people. So we had this Mr. Crooks who was 20 years old. And when you combine that with the perception that the investigative and law enforcement federal agency, with the FBI and the Secret Service, there had been leaks that they had either refused Donald Trump proper protection or they didn't like him. And I think that gave people encouragement. We saw an almost fatal assassination attempt. But all of these administrative state efforts to emasculate him and render him inert have not worked. In fact, they've only made him stronger.